now it is indeed my pleasure to present to you our first presenter, to introduce to you our first presenter. She is a wonderful woman. Yes, daughter of the Most High God, a longtime community health advocate and media pioneer. Denise Pines. Denise Pines, remember that name, ladies, because she is a trusted resource for women as they pursue midlife wellness. Imagine, people always say midlife crises. Denise is showing us midlife wellness. She's dedicated to exploring and promoting fresh concepts for menopause. Yes, I said it, menopause. She believes menopause is the best time of a woman's life. And many of us would agree. She's the founder of Wise Pause, a pro-aging health and education platform, and Fem Aging Tech, which includes innovations in diagnostics, devices, pharmaceuticals, and clothing. Yes, a novel concept, clothing developed specifically for women ages 40 and above. Denise, my friend Denise, co-founded Women in the Room Productions. This is an award-winning filmmaking team producing 11 documentaries. Ladies, a powerhouse indeed. She performs in excellence in many arenas. She is the past president of the Medical Board of California, and she presently serves as on the board of directors for the Federation of State Medical Boards. Without any further ado, I present to you my friend, Denise Pines. Denise, it's all yours. Take it away.
Thank you, Dean Williams. I'm going to have to take you on the road with me. That's the best introduction I've ever had. So I want to just welcome all the women who've come this morning. This has been great. I'm glad you are starting your day off. I think you're going to hear some things that you haven't heard in the past. And I feel that, our society just doesn't see women in all of her life stages, and particularly this life stage. I mean, women's health is centered around childbearing years. And once that ends, well, so does what I've noticed, the health support that we need. And when it comes to the healthcare system, we tend to be seen as small men. And so unfortunately, women suffer from things like PCOS and PMS and endometriosis and menopause, mainly due to a lack of research in these areas. They almost don't believe these are really real issues. And part of it is we're not screaming loud enough, ladies, about these issues. So fortunately, I'm joined today by a really good friend of mine, Julie E., who's a nutritionist and a functional medicine expert with a passion for helping women improve their health with her infinite tool chest of remedies. Julie is an expert on women's health and healing. Hold on one second, I had a little pop-up there. And she brings this sort of wisdom to caring for her patients. She uses modern and ancient healing modalities, and she'll talk about that a little bit later. She's also a sought-out speaker on the use of cannabis for women's health. And you'll hear from her about a little bit of that as we get on. So I want to talk about how I got started talking about menopause. It all started with a hot flash. I was shocked. My mother didn't get hot flashes. I, do 2 triathlons a year. I run a half marathon. I eat pretty well. And in my mind, that just wasn't going to happen to me, but it did. And I decided I wanted to deal with it naturally. So I partnered with my functional doctor, and we created something called Hot Flash Tea. And this led me to talk to women all around the country. And I met women who felt confused, embarrassed, They felt isolated. And most importantly, and what really struck out to me is I just felt they were suffering unnecessarily. And they had been suffering for a long time. I realized that they needed answers from the right midlife experts. And that's why I started Wise Cause Wellness, to bring healthcare practitioners and nutritionists and fitness experts and scientists and therapeutic specialists together to speak to women and provide them with solutions. And then after I read some articles on femtech, I realized even the technology industry wasn't creating innovative solutions for women. And I launched Fem Aging, where we do health tech reports focused specifically on women ages 40 plus about what it is that they really want in a health tech solution at this point in their life. We do events and we also do pitch in competitions so we can spur the innovation. And yes, ladies, this all happened simply because I got a hot flash, because prior to that, I was never talking about menopause. I was in media, developing shows and things like that. So I want you to kind of understand the lingo before we go any further, just understanding a few terms. So premature menopause, it means it occurs before 40, and it happens to about 1% of women, and 1 in 1,000 women enter menopause before age 30. Perimenopause, those are the years leading up to menopause, where a lot of those symptoms like hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, sleepless nights, low energy, low sex, thinning hair, and bloating tend to begin. It's about 10 years before you hit menopause, and there's about 61 plus documented symptoms. But 75% of women will experience the most common symptom, which is hot flashes. And then menopause. And menopause simply means you've gone 12 consecutive months without a period. And by month 13, you're now officially menopause. That's all it means. The average age is about 51. And now postmenopause. That really reflects a full year after you've been in menopause. And I really like us to understand these terms, because the more knowledge we have early on, the better we can deal with these changes even before they start coming. And we're here today now because more than ever, stress has been wreaking havoc on women's hormones and impacting their daily lives. So whether you're 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, the last 18 months for sure, with the forced isolation, the cautionary socializing, it's really kind of laid a foundation for us to have healthier life habits. And a lot of people took that to task and they started to walk, definitely during the isolation time. We found ourselves working from home, so we don't have the stress of commuting. And so a lot of people started to come inward and started to focus on their health. Even during this time, especially at the height of it, 60% of Americans were getting weekly exercise into their new routines, and they started cooking healthier meals. But then there were those who got what they were calling the quarantine 15 or 20, which is 20 pounds, and which is really, really a lot of weight to gain in a short period of time, and especially if you're over 40, because it puts enormous stress on your hormones. And later, Julie is going to talk a little bit about it's not what you eat, but it's really what your body absorbs. So I want to talk a little history. I like us to understand kind of how we got to where we are and what's been happening along the way. So let's talk about hormones in this way. So in the 1900s, pre-PMS, menopause were an issue. They just weren't really issues 100 years ago, mostly because people on average lived to about age 48. I know that's so crazy for us to imagine that, but it really was true. I mean, it really was a blessing if you lived to be a 60 plus year person. Women, a lot, they died before menopause. So, but those who did reach menopause, they were considered to be wise women, and they were viewed positively. For those who did go into menopause in ancient times, they believed hormones were transferable. And so they drank the urine of young men and women. But as we moved into the 1900s, they started looking at chemistry and looking at bioidenticals and discovered that there could be some solutions provided with the increase of hormone stimulation. And so in the 1960s, hormones became available for use. Mainly they were made from horse urine extract, and a lot are still using horse urine extract today. But then in 2002, a study came out, and a lot of us are familiar with the study. You may not know that the name was the Women's Health Initiative, or WHI is what we see a lot of it being referenced to, but it showed that estrogen caused cancer, and women all over the world just instantly stopped taking hormone replacement therapy. I mean, literally, just like in one swell swoop, just stopped taking them, and doctors stopped prescribing them. And this left doctors without a remedy and women without a solution. And in the past, women didn't turn to doctors for help because, you know what, they really just didn't experience these menopausal symptoms that we're experiencing today. Women felt actually better in premenopause and menopause than they did in childbearing years. It actually, for women who've had children, it's really hard, those years of carrying the child and then care for the child, and then having another child while you're caring for a child, and caring for another child while you're having another child, and that continues to go on. And when menopause time came, women actually felt the relief from really that kind of stress. And now we're living to 100. And the average woman's life expectancy is over 80 years, about 81 years. But ironically, at the same time that all this is sort of happening, that we're living longer, society became increasingly youth-oriented. And many women became fearful of even talking about perimenopause, even if they knew what the word was, but definitely not talking about menopause, because that label often was presented as being a disease, or at best a condition that represents old age rather than wisdom, right? And that's really kind of what our challenge is, and where we are with having the lack of information, the lack of doctors having the ability to really help women during this time frame in their life. And we're going to live this life. I mean, we're living to 100. So if I go into menopause, say at 51, I'm going to be 30, 40 years in sort of this state. And I'm just not a person to suffer. So I don't want anyone to suffer when there's definitely solutions out there. You know, the modern era sort of changed that, because when we look at women in the 1950s, they reflect the women born in 1900s. And that is when we started to see hot flashes and night sweats and all of these symptoms that I talked about earlier. In that tidal wave of symptoms, you know, like weight gain and dizziness, physicians were reporting these symptoms, but they didn't know how to classify them. And they actually started calling them an epidemic. But today we know what an epidemic is, and it's not menopausal symptoms. The pharmaceutical companies at first thought women, it was in their mind, but then they decided, when they looked at these symptoms that women were talking to their doctors about, that women happened to be in a certain age, they then decided that, oh, this must be hormone deficiency. And then they started to create some of the drugs that we see today. But a lot of times, women's symptoms are not caused by hormone deficiency exclusively. We live in a more toxic environment. We have lots of pesticides, not in our food, in our air that we breathe. We've got chemicals in our cleaning products, in our hair solutions, our skin solutions, our air fresheners. More women are getting food allergies. And of course, and I know we love these things, our cell phones and our laptops and our desktops really compromise and overwhelm our hormones. And there's no one really talking about, well, how do we defend our body with all of this disruption, a lot of which is not in our control. So you may hear people, they talk a lot about hormone imbalance leads to stress, but it's really the opposite. Your stress leads to hormone imbalance. So when you're stressed, your body creates more cortisol than it can handle. And this stress causes hormone fatigue, sadness, acne, and so much more. So how does adrenal stress begin? Adrenal issues can start in childhood. If you're from a dysfunctional family where addiction ruled the home, or you experience some type of emotional or physical trauma, it starts then. And then we go into our 20s, we go off to college or you go to work, and you start getting new levels of stress that you hadn't experienced before. And then we're meeting new people, we're in new places, and we have higher expectations on us, especially if you are going to college, you have academics, stress, or socially, as you were developing more friendships. And some of us, of course, I know I was one of those who took socializing to new heights in my 20s. Staying out all night, I would travel, I would go to a party or go to a different city and then show up at work with no sleep at 8 o'clock in the morning, fresh from a shower, but that's it. And you do that constantly, that's a different kind of stress. And we then have stress of getting married and having children, moving up in our careers or becoming entrepreneurs. That's more stress being put on the body. And just because we can do it, it doesn't mean we're not sacrificing something. And that's what we need to always understand. Just because you can do it doesn't mean something else isn't happening. And in this case, we're burning out our adrenal glands. That's what's taking the brunt of this. And, you may have said to yourself or to other people that you're exhausted, not tired, but exhausted. And you've been saying it for years. I know I had been saying I was exhausted for about 5 years. And I would tell it to my doctors and they would run tests and go, you're perfectly healthy. And I would walk out sometimes thinking, is it me? I know I'm not crazy, but I'm freaking tired, and nobody seems to understand it. So I know a lot of women face this. And now you start hitting your 40s, and now you've got kind of new stress. You might have kids in high school or in college, and you take on more work responsibility. Or you might be dealing with a sick parent or a grandparent, and that's more stress, more adrenal burning out. And now you're getting symptoms and you're exhausted all the time. And now your body is looking for its backup. It knows that it's moving out of childbearing years, and it doesn't need the same level of hormones you needed then, but you are crashing, and you're crashing all the time. And you have sort of this continual craving for stimulants. And so now you find yourself amping up with coffee. It used to be 1 cup, now it's 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 throughout the day. You're having sugary snacks like donuts and cookies and chocolate and crackers and Red Bull and double espresso and even drugs, whatever you can do to get a boost just to maintain energy. Or you might have insomnia, or you feel tired after you woke up. Ladies, this is called adrenal burnout. And your adrenals are your backup generator to your hormones. So when I always say God has designed our bodies perfectly, and he designed the body to understand this point in time that our hormones were going to decrease because we no longer needed particular amounts of estrogen to have children. And so the adrenal glands, if they're healthy, actually increase estrogen. And you really should just be gliding through to menopause and not even know until you just simply don't have a period. But that has not happened in many, many moons. At least 60 years now. And we are still treating these symptoms the same old way with hormone stimulation, when there's so many more things that causes these symptoms, as I talked about before. And we just need to start to address these underlying health issues that's been misattributed to PMS when we're younger, perimenopause, and then to menopause. So your adrenal glands, I wanted people to really sort of see this slide, are located just above your kidneys, and they're behind your back, about the size of a walnut. And your adrenals produce really critical health, because they regulate the sex hormones like estrogen. So our bodies are designed to have a stress. Of course we are. We have children, that gives us stress. We experience the death of loved ones, that gives us stress. We have emotional stress like divorce or job loss. And even now, we have a new stress pandemic. And then this morning, I heard we might have another stress, which is called the drought, and having to adjust for that. So we are wired to deal with stress, but when we have it in sort of that hamster wheel, day after day, year after year kind of stress, that's when the adrenal fatigues and shows up as lack of energy. Our adrenals have stopped producing the full amount of hormones it needs to have optimal health. And when your adrenals are burned out because you make too much cortisol, because you're stressed, and when you're stressed, you make cortisol, you can even get vaginal dryness as early as 20s and 30s because you're making them at the expense of your sex hormones, the estrogen, the progesterone, and testosterone. And so that creates complete havoc on your system. And that's what's happening with a lot of young people. And we are starting to see menopause show up, or menopausal symptoms, I'll say specifically, as young as 26 years old. And our adrenals are important because they affect other glands, our pancreas, our heart, our kidneys, our liver. And that could lead to autoimmune diseases or even cancer. And this is all caused by stress. And I talk about stress because this is something we can control. And the earlier you start, the less havoc it has on your hormones. And if you ask a millennial about perimenopause and menopause, they just typically look at you like you're like, what are you talking about? I don't even know what you're talking about. They think it's so far in the future, they can't even imagine or even consider it long enough to wonder what it is. But in January, the oldest millennial has now turned 40, and they are now entering perimenopause stage. So millennials, this is not this is now coming into your realm. But the good news is that it's never too late to say that you want to feel better. You can heal your adrenals, and it's under your control. If your fatigue is mild, it may take you 3 months. If it's moderate, it may take 6 to 12 months. But if it's really severe, if you've really been burning and stressing out for, say, a decade, it might take 2 or more years to get your adrenal glands back to being optimal. The years leading up to menopause and the life after isn't meant to be a difficult process. And we have to stop thinking as women that we have to suffer through life. We have this notion really that we have to suffer. So when something new comes and we acquiesce to like just another thing on our suffering scale, and this is not a time that we have to suffer. This is, to me, like, these are your great years. I mean, we are not living our mother's menopause because 50, is the new 30. And most women who are 40 plus in menopause stage, this is really a very positive time because, this is a time where you don't get pregnant, so you have sexual freedom in a way that you never really had before. You tend to have more money. You tend to be smarter, wiser. And we have more of the ability of time because if our children are in college, we have a kind of time that we just didn't have before. So I see these as our best years. It's when I think a lot of women come back into who they are when they were before their children, before they got married, and sort of reclaim themselves. And in fact, there's one tip that I want to leave you with today is that we have the power to heal ourselves, that the body only knows how to do one thing. It only knows how to live. And we have the ability to help it do that. So if you have a doctor you're seeing and they don't have solutions for you, it's okay to leave and go to another doctor. It's okay to leave the doctor who may have delivered all of your children. If they do not have solutions for you at this stage in your life, they are not going to have solutions for you, even as you get into another stage of your life when you turn 65 and new things start to arise. So it's okay to leave. We have plenty of doctors on the Wise Pause list that you can take a look at. They're all around the country. A lot of them work remote. You have Julie E., who you're about to hear from. You can email me at dpines@denisepines.com if you want to ask any specific questions or want to be directed to someone more specific to what may be going on with you. So now I am going to hand this off to my partner, Julie E., and she's going to share with you how to keep your adrenals strong, some stress reduction techniques that you may not have ever even known about, that you can use every day of your life, and definitely definitely and particularly at this life stage. And then we'll hear from Julie.
Thank you so much, Denise. That was fantastic. And I have so many things that I want to say now after hearing Denise's talk on top of what I had already had planned. First of all, the word menopause, you know, it's funny because I have a male client who's going through menopause right now. And menopause is for men is called andropause, but why is it called menopause for women? So if you actually break it down, I think it's like taking a pause from men. So focusing on yourself, all those things Denise said, you know, it's a time when your kids are grown and now you really get to focus on you. I remember when my child was a baby and I would see other moms that looked amazing, fit, well put together and showered, and I was like frazzled and stressed out and on no sleep. And I realized the common theme was that their kids were teenagers. So that's what it was. They were all at this age of their 40s or 50s or this perimenopausal age, and they had time to focus on themselves. So it really is a nice gift and a nice time in life, all the things that Denise said. And I am going to share some slides in a moment, but I just wanted to give a little bit more information for you. Some of the things that Denise said, like it could take a couple of years to really heal your hormones and things that are going on in your body. But yesterday I had a woman here for the very first time. And at the end of the session, she was commenting over and over again about how fantastic she felt. And she said, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if you could always feel this great? And that was in 1 hour. So it could take a couple of years to really make significant changes in your body, but it could also take just a short time to feel good or better. So keep that in mind. I talk a lot about thinking about your body like a fixer-upper house. You don't hate your house the first month you live there, but every year that you live there, it looks better and better and better. So you know, there's hope. It's not a process that is going to take forever and, you know, where you can't enjoy it along the way. So I do want to share some slides as well. So I have 3 taglines for my business, and they are in this green circle right here. Limitless healing. First of all, simple solutions for health, because healing is much easier than everyone tells you it can be. I think at the beginning of the call, Vanessa was saying she watched one of my videos and she was saying, could it really be that easy to heal? And it is true. It's easy to heal if you know what to do. And Denise's comment about if your doctor doesn't have any solutions for you, move on, find another one, is 100% true, because you know, there's different chefs, there's different beauticians, there's different dentists. We go to certain people for a reason. You don't have to stay with them forever. You have to make sure that you're in charge of your health and you are continually improving. And today we're going to talk about some big picture things, but I'm also going to give you a couple of simple solutions. And that is always what I bring it down to. I can talk to you about what's happening in your body on a cellular level, and I can explain all this scientific information, and you can look at your lab work and see where your hormones are at and your cortisol and what's going on in your body, and you have this kidney infection or this digestive problem, etc. But I could also teach you something that you can do in 2 minutes where you can feel instantly fantastic, and it is going to help you on the cellular level. It's just that the cellular level takes that longer time to heal. So using the idea of simple solutions, I believe in limitless healing. Your body was designed to heal. You break a bone, you put a cast on it, and miraculously the bone heals just by not using that arm. Even if you eat garbage and you don't take any supplements, your arm is going to heal. It may heal good, it may heal amazing. It depends on what you put in. What you put in is what you get out, right? So there are infinite number of possibilities of healing. I'm going to provide a handful of them to you today. And even you could line up 15 functional medicine practitioners or energy healers, and they can all help you, and they may all use different techniques. You have to select the ones that work for you. And I believe that they change over time. You have what I call your today body, and whatever's going on in your body at this exact moment, when you treat that, hopefully you have a totally different today body in a couple of weeks from now, because you've changed and healed things. But if you have the same problems today that you had 3 months ago and 3 years ago, then you're not on the right plan. So I really want you to think about that. And I'm going to start again, as I said, with the big picture. There are 3 steps to healing and how I see it happening. You have what's called your biofield. It's a plasma energy field. You may think of the term aura, like your personal space. It's called the biofield. It's a plasma energy field that when it is intact, healing is limitless. When there are holes in it, you can think of it like leaky gut syndrome, but it's like leaky energy field syndrome. And when you have, I think everyone's probably heard of leaky gut by now, when you have little holes in your gut, all kinds of random weird things can happen, and you're like chasing it to figure it out, and you're repairing and you're killing off bacteria or parasites, but you want that biofield and that gut to be intact. Then there's what I call the assembly line, which is your body's detox system. Just like an oil change of a car, and you need it every 3,000 miles, if you don't heal your assembly line or flush it out and repair it every so often, then your body's like a 50-year-old car that's never had an oil change. And now you understand why you feel the way you do. I call it an assembly line because we all know what happens on an assembly line. If one person doesn't show up, it backs everybody else up. So if your assembly line is your liver, gallbladder, kidneys, intestines, and lymph, and one of those is sluggish, it backs up the whole system, and your body does not do a good job detoxing. The last part are the traumas and the injuries. And when you are born, supposedly, we're all coming out as these perfect, like babies with perfect, and energy is flowing everywhere throughout your whole body. Think of it like a brand new Porsche. And we can take 2 Porsches and put them right next to each other, the car, right? And put them next to each other, and they can each get 3 little fender denners. And one car is a lemon and one car runs perfectly. So all of those little traumas to the car can become super problematic, or they can be no big deal. And the same thing to your body. You have these channels of energy flowing throughout your body, and some of them are problematic and some of them are not. Think about I have clients with little children. The child fell learning how to walk. They fell out of the high chair. They rolled off of their bunk bed. I slept at my friend's house many times when I was a child on the top bunk. I fell out of the top bunk to the floor at least 3 times. Like, that's pretty traumatic in the middle of your sleep. And so all those impacts to your spine or to your head or your tailbone, anywhere in your body, they're like little dents. And you can go get a CAT scan or an MRI and nothing shows up because it's not a full-blown condition and there's no bleeding, but they're little dents in your biofield, and they're little dents in your meridians, these channels of energy that run throughout your body. And it can take 40 years to take down an organ or gland. And that's why everything that happens from the time you're born until now has been this like building of breaking down systems in your body. And that's why you're like, but I never had this problem before. Or some people say, it's been this way my whole life. I treated a woman who had a scar over her eyebrow. Her biggest complaint was constipation. And she laughed and she said, but that's been there my whole life. Well, she's been constipated her whole life. We treated that scar with mud therapy, a few lasers and castor oil and mud therapy, and constipation has never happened to her again. And it's been 7 years. So those are I jumped a little too fast. These are the 3 main categories of healing. You have to heal your biofield, make sure your assembly line is running immaculately, and then you can deal with your traumas and injuries and assess which ones are problematic and which ones aren't. And I just have a couple of slides to give you an idea of what this means. So the biofield, this energy field, gets destroyed by your cell phone, your Wi-Fi router, your tablets, toll booths, and the checkout counter at every store you go to, that red light. Every time your biofield gets a zap to it, it destroys it and it takes it down, maybe for a moment, but in an unhealthy body, it can take somebody down for a long time. The reason we go outside to get, when you're like, if you're inside now, which I think everyone is on their device, and you're on your device or your computer all day for hours, then when you go outside, you're like, oh my God, I feel so much better, because air and the light and the sun recharge your body. The earth recharges you. But when you're on a building that has rebar in it and metal, and then you're on devices all day, you are completely void of Mother Nature, and it is breaking down your biofield. And I do have remedies for everything that I talk about that's negative. So we have little stickers you can put on the back of your devices, and it changes your device from killing you into healing you. And what the devices are doing is they're pulling electrolytes, minerals, CoQ10, and other, and they're pulling all of those out of your cells, and you don't even realize it. So you're on your phone all day long, and then you're wondering why I can't lose weight, or why I can't heal, or why I can't sleep, or why I have headaches. It's because you don't have a biofield and you're totally deficient in nutrients. And that includes minerals, and minerals fight infection. So if you're afraid for your immune system, then the first step is to put stickers on your devices. It's really easy. If you can afford an $1,100 device, you can afford a $35 sticker to put on your phone. And some people wear, like I'm wearing a necklace right now. We have different kinds of EMF remediation jewelry. You know, I'm not the only one talking about this. It's a hot topic right now, but it's been around. I've had the stickers on my phone and my devices since the year 2000. So it's not a new technology. I would recommend avoiding the checkout line at all stores, because the self-checkout, because that means you're over that red light. However long it takes you to scan all of your products, you're on top of that red light. I usually avoid the red light. And then when they want to scan my phone, I'm like, I put it away from my body, and I'm like, don't, because if they scan it right here, they're scanning you. And the store that always comes to mind is Michael's. I haven't been there in a few years, but the girls at the checkout counter have the scanner right on their ovary, and it's also by their colon. So those girls, whoever, or boys, who is ever working there, is going to have health problems the rest of their life, guaranteed. So that's the biofield. So we want to keep the biofield intact. And I'll talk about a couple of techniques to restore the biofield. I just want to give you a little bit of a scenario here. Here's what I call the assembly line, but it's your detox system. Your body was designed to detox things. And Denise was talking about all of the ways we could get toxicity: food, air, water, smells. When certain stores, when you go into and you go, oh, that smells so pretty. Well, think about how that's killing your brain cells and destroying your liver at the same time. And so again, as negative as I could talk about these things are easy to fix. It may sound overwhelming to you right now. Personally, I don't use that O word in my life, because even saying it sounds overwhelming. So it sounds like a lot of stuff you have to do. Think about it that way. And, you know, words become true. So if you say things intense, you're going to create an intense scenario. If you think, oh, wow, I have a lot of work to do for my today body, then you focus on today, and then suddenly you feel better, and then you get to tomorrow. But all of these, whether it's your skin, air, right, through your nose, or topically, hair, I'm sorry, I already said that, but the skin, or topical, let's think, hair, how many products do you put in your hair? On your head, right next to your brain, where your hypothalamus is, and your pituitary, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes. Those regulate your entire body, especially your hormones. Makeup, and then any procedures you've done. If we go into the scar area, which is the category 3, facelifts, eye lifts, permanent makeup, all that stuff stresses out your body. And you can undo it, but if you didn't know you had to, then you probably have not worked on this. And so if you just do a little bit of addressing your toxins and your traumas, it actually is going to be fairly easy to feel better. But in terms of toxicity, you have 3 routes of entry. You have your skin, which is all your topicals, you have air, which is your nose, your eyes, and your ears, and then you have your diet. And even when you eat organic food, I guarantee you are getting glyphosate and toxicity in your body. So you better make sure that your detox system is working immaculate to make sure that you are filtering and releasing as much as you are coming in, as much as is coming into. And if you live in Los Angeles, laying here in bed doing absolutely nothing for 24 hours, your liver gets at least 72,000 hits a day. And those are negative hits. So if your liver's getting this much activity coming at it, then it's also sending stuff all through the assembly line at such a fast rate that all of the steps of your assembly line need to really be working immaculately. And one of the ways that I describe the assembly line is the I Love Lucy episode when they're working at the candy factory. We all know this one. They're standing there and the candies are coming through one at a time, and the ladies are wrapping them and sending them on their way. No problem. And the boss is like, you're doing such a good job, we're going to speed it up. So they turn the turnstile super fast and the candies are coming through like 1,000,000 miles per hour. The women are like, we literally can't process them. They're stashing them and stuffing them everywhere they possibly can. So let's turn that word candy into toxin. That's how fast toxins can be coming into your body. And if your assembly line and your detox system can't handle it at that fast of a pace, because they're tired, your organs are tired or exhausted or stressed or deficient in nutrients, then you're going to stash them and store them. And that's how we end up with cancer, basically, because you're stashing toxicity in hormone sensitive tissues. So better than stashing them is to make sure you filter them out. So if you have not ever filtered out your assembly line, there is no time like the present to focus on this. Doesn't matter that the holidays are coming up. You can still do things to address all of these organs and glands. I have a group detox, the Simple Solutions Detox Program, where we will be running in January. We run it a couple of times a year. That's where you're taking supplements and drinking a shake. There's mud therapy that you can do topically, and then there's just nutrients that you can do for each organ and gland. And then we're going to go through tapping and swiping and castor oil, which you can also do topically, which is easier. The traumas and injuries, when I see a new client, I give them a picture of a body and a lot of lines, and I say, write down all your traumas from the time you were born. And some people come in with like 5 pages, and some people write 2 things. And I'm like, there's no way you only had 2 injuries your whole life. Every single woman that I have worked with that is also a mom has, I don't care what you call it, stitches at the girly area or a C-section stitches, or they had an epidural. Every single one of those is a trauma to the body. And the episiotomy, or whether you got cut or you had stitches or you tore, people are like, oh, it's just a little tear. I didn't have an episiotomy. You did. And that is at your root chakra. And if you think about what the root chakra means, it's all about being grounded and peaceful and calm. The second chakra, which is where the C-section is all of your female organs and your colon. And so if you had either one of those, which I'm going to guarantee 99% of the people on this call who have children have, then those 2 traumas are completely number 1 and number 2 destroying your health right now. And I don't want to even call it destroying, but blocking you from feeling great. Those are at the root of it. But first you have to build a biofield and make sure your assembly line is working, because if you start treating the traumas and the scars and the injury areas first, guess what? You are going to make your assembly line 10 times more sluggish than it already is. So once you build your biofield, you get your organs running well, then you can start to work on a scar. And I usually recommend only working on it 1 inch at a time. And then it's like a seesaw for the rest of your life. It's like, do a little work on my scar, come back and work on my assembly line. Then I can do a little work on another scar and come back and check on my assembly line. And so that's really it. It's those three things and your whole entire body will heal. It is that simple. And the way that you treat your assembly line, your traumas and your injuries, as I said, you can go to 15 different practitioners and you can do it all the different ways they teach you. My ways are not the only ways. I would like to say it's my way or the highway, but it's not. There are so many other people that have amazing skills and techniques that I don't use or have never heard of. I will love to hear about them, but anything you do to heal those will help. And so every scar throughout your life, especially the emotional ones, the divorces, the dead pets or children or parents or best friends, you know, the people that passed, any trauma that was significant to you, and then sometimes the little ones that seemed insignificant. A trauma, when you have a emotional stress and nutritional deficiency at the time of a physical trauma, I will guarantee that it becomes a problem that starts to break down your body over time. So if you go home and you're home, if you make a list of all your traumas, that's a great starting place. And then you can also start to work on your assembly line. And this is just the best picture that my artist could find for the moment on taking a car that has a lot of dents in it and just painting it. You don't want to hang paintings on a wall of a fixer-upper house before you gut and spackle and paint. You have to do the work before you just hang the pictures up. And you have, if the car, it has dents everywhere and you paint it and shine it and make it look great, that's just, you know, that's our ego. That's like, oh, I'm gonna look good even though I feel like crap on the inside. That's like the fake book thing. It's like everyone's life looks perfect out there, but really you're dealing with your stuff. But as Denise said, during this time, a lot of people have started to go inside and go, how can I be better? How can I feel better? How can I present myself in a better way? How can I be more authentic? And that's really what it comes down to, is fix the inside and then everything will fall into place. The Band-Aid remedies, I keep going back and forth between a car and a fixer-upper house because I feel like they both make sense to you. Hopefully one of them at least does. But if you buy a fixer-upper house and you just like hang all these paintings and you didn't see if there were termites and you didn't fix the underlying issues, and the house may crumble at any given time, or it may just have issues. Similarly, in your body, most people are like, oh, I'm taking this product and this product. My friend says this works. I read about this. I heard this is great. Those are what I call Band-Aid remedies, but they're not fixing the root of the problem. And if the supplement, if we're talking about supplements, things you're taking or foods you're eating, if those are not organic and clean, then they come with what we call toxic tag-alongs. And so they may make you feel great for a short period of time, but at the same time, they're doing DNA damage. So we call it a short-term benefit with a long-term harm. So you better make sure that the products that you're taking to fix your body are clean. And 50 to 60% of supplements out there have, are you ready? Pharmaceuticals, glass, paint, and sugar in them. That is a statistic from a lab that companies send their product to analyze them so they can come up with what they should put on the label. And guess what? They don't put that stuff on the label, but it's in there. So it's not just about what it says on the label. I use an energy test and I teach this. It's called the O-ring. I have some online Zoom classes for that to teach you to learn how to check something energetically. Because if use your intuition for now, though, women have intuition for a reason. If you're looking at two different supplements and one costs $50 and the other one's $20, but you feel like the $20 one is better for you, use your intuition and go for that, because I appreciate intuition. And other than that, the labels may seem almost identical, that it's the same product, because just because it has a higher dollar sign doesn't mean it's better for you. I have tons of products here that are $12 and $20 that are cleaner and work better and faster and heal you than things that people come in with that they spend $50 to $100 on. So make sure you focus on the root of the issue before you just paint. And if you're going to just paint or hang pictures, use that just temporarily to feel okay today, but focus on what's on the inside. And I'm not going to explain this chaotic looking picture in detail, and you might not even be able to see all the details. But for a moment, if you just take your hand and cover the right half and just look at the left side, we have the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals. And then cover the left half, and on the right, we have the same first two words, and then we have the thyroid. And in the middle at the top, we have stress. Stress can be defined as EMF stress, as I talked about from your devices. It could be emotional, it could be nutrient deficiency, parasites, toxicity, little dents in your body, as we've talked about. And it also could be your job, your parents, your friends, and your siblings, right? So stress is the umbrella, and Denise mentioned that as well. That's the problem. And so we really need to deal with the stress, and we'll get into that in a moment. But stress makes your body secrete cortisol. And so if you just look for a moment at the arrows underneath the one on the left, when the hypothalamus, well, just start on the one on the left for a moment. In the picture on the left, the hypothalamus secretes cortisol releasing hormone, and then it sends a signal to the pituitary. The hypothalamus secretes a hormone, it sends that to the pituitary, and that secretes something to the adrenal. And at the bottom, you could see cortisol. Cortisol is what makes you fat, and cortisol is what destroys your hormones. And so on this chart on the left, we have 1 arrow and 3 arrows. And that means if you're low in stress or if you're high in stress, but the same thing happens really. You just secrete more or less of these hormones. But look at the big arrow that goes from the hypothalamus all the way over to the right. And it basically blocks the thyroid hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone. And then when you get all the way through the HPA axis to the bottom, you have 2 more arrows that come over and inhibit the thyroid before the thyroid is activated and after the thyroid is activated. So the main point of this whole slide is that more stress blocks the thyroid, and it also weakens the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenals. So, and stress is stress. Stress is I think of stress as, well, I'm going to define stress. It's an oxidant. Oxidants are things that turn lead to rust. And antioxidants are like little whack-a-moles all day long. They're whack-a-moling out your stress. So if you start your day with a whole cup of antioxidants, you use them up throughout the day because they're playing whack-a-mole. And then if you end your day with just a small cup of antioxidants, great. That is better than starting your day with no antioxidants and ending up flat out, like on the ground with no antioxidant support. Another way that I define antioxidants, I wasn't going to talk about this, but it makes sense. It's a little story you'll never forget. Picture a little old lady walking down a dark alley in New York City at night, and there's an attacker hiding behind a garbage can. The attacker is about to come and attack the woman, but instead a policeman comes and attacks the attacker. The attacker and the policeman die, and the woman walks on unharmed. You're the woman, the attacker is the oxidant, like your parent, your friend, your job, or pollution, and the policeman is the antioxidant. So all day long, as you have oxidants, you actually use up your antioxidants. So you want to have more antioxidants in your body on a regular basis. You want to start your day off strong, and you want to add some as you go through the day, because your body will use them up, dealing with whack-a-mole of all your day problems. And so there are a long list of antioxidants. This picture is related to the first one, because on the bottom of this left here, we end with cortisol. It's the second one. And cortisol is the hormone that is on this chart on the right. And in order to make cortisol, you have to first make cholesterol. If you're making cortisol on the right half of this graph all day long because your body is so stressed out, and the reason for the stress could also be the traumas and the blockages in your body, and you're trying to detox, your liver but your kidneys and your lymph aren't working. So you're missing the boat and you're just detoxing and getting more and more exhausted. And you don't know why. It's because your kidneys or your lymph aren't working. And that detoxing is raising your cortisol even more. And in order to raise your cortisol, you have to raise your cholesterol. That's how it works. And so on this chart, the left-hand column is reproduction and the right hand is survival. And so if you were trying to survive all day long, your body's just trying to figure stuff out, you're just going to keep secreting cortisol. And that in the end is going to deplete your DHEA, your estrogen, your testosterone. And you don't want to have a lot of estrogen because that's also a risk factor for hot flashes and cancers. But you want to make sure you have testosterone and DHEA and even andro, because when you have those, you actually just feel better and your immune system works better. So that's enough science, I think, for the moment. We are going to all stand up. Everybody stand up. We're going to do something now because I believe in practicality and take-home messages. This is called tapping and swiping. So as I said, I can give you all the science, but I can also give you simple solutions. So tapping and swiping, you can follow it exactly as the directions are on the picture. And you can take a screenshot or a photo of this. I'm going to give you an even simpler version that I feel just is a great for everybody. You're going to use your first two fingers because they are the strongest. You're just going to tap. And not hard where you're hurting yourself and not too soft. So we're going to start at the top of our head and you're just going to tap and you're going to breathe out. Breathing is more important than anything else. And you're going to go all around your head. And you might, on my head, for some reason, I like to use all four fingers. It's a little, makes it maybe more gentle and more thorough. And you're going to get around your eyes and your sinuses and your cheek. And then you're going to get into the parathyroid under the jaw and then around your neck and breathe out. Like exhale way more than you think. And then you're going to get to your neck and you're going to go over the boobs and in the boobs, because they are also tissue like pillows, right? And then under the boobs for the liver is under here and the gallbladder. And then on the left side, the liver and the gallbladder on the right. And on the left side, you're starting to get into your stomach. And let's work on the front of our body first. You're going to get to your navel and your intestines and all the way down to your pubic bone. And I'm talking a lot, so I'm not breathing enough, but I want you to exhale more than I am. And then pause for 1 second and breathe out. For the back of the body, I find it easier to use the knuckle. And so we're going to go as high up as you can, or you could have gone over your shoulders. And you're going to get your adrenals. And your kidneys are just above your belt buckle. And then just because it feels good, you go into your glutes and your hips, breathing out. And so those are your organs. Those are your organs and some of your glands. Then we have to do the lymph, which is the one part of the body we don't have a doctor for, but it is the number one most important part, the armpit, the lymph. So there's the front, the middle, and the back of the armpit. And make sure you get the back because there's a lot of lymph back here. And breathe out. And then the other side. And we're exhaling. So you are beating the dust out of all of your organs and glands. It is like a workout for them. And then you're going to do the groins. And so the top and the bottom half are a mirror image of each other. So when I'm tight here on my back, I'm also tight here in my glute. Breathing out. And then again, pause for a moment. So that's tapping. Couple more exhales. And then you're going to swipe. So you're going to take your hand and you're going to swipe sand or powder off of your arm, making sure to get the wrist and all the fingers. And if you have finger issues, you do each one. Just do one arm for a moment. Don't do the other one yet. And you're going to breathe out all the way, wiping. Okay. And then just pause for a moment and feel the difference in both arms. I just wanted you to see that it really actually works. So if you tap and swipe twice a day, like you brush your teeth, you're actually giving all your organs and glands a treatment. You are flushing them out. You're doing assembly line work. and you're doing lymph work. And it's also relaxing. After you do your arms, you go to your legs. Start at your low back at your kidneys and go all the way down and do all 360 degrees of the inner thighs, the back of the leg. And then you need to make sure, most people do it when they sit, but you need to do the top and the bottom of each foot. And then just breathe. So breathe out a couple of times. So tapping and swiping a couple of times every single day. You can download that information on my website. Earthing or grounding, as I call it, I just want you to see, first of all, the pictures on the left. Let's start with the pre-earthing, post-earthing. The pre-earthing, this is if we prick someone's finger, get the blood, wipe it onto a slide, and look at it under a microscope. This on the left is somebody's cells, and then the one on the right is after 15 minutes of being on the earth. These are your cells. This is a drastic healing that you get from being barefoot on the ground, the dirt, the sand, the ocean, or the grass. And this is a free download on my website. And if you're on the Zoom call, I believe we are sending this to you. So here's 3 examples of 3 different people's blood. The one on the right, you could see the cells look happier. They're more circular. They're all flowing away from each other a little bit better. That allows all of your cell membranes are made out of fat. If you don't eat enough good fat, then they can look like ovals or triangles instead of circles. And the reason that's a problem is because you absorb nutrients on the cell membrane. So they need to be perfect circles. And the more on top of each other they are, like on the left pictures, it's like knots and tightness in your body. No one wants that. And so I make everybody eat a lot more good fat because most people don't eat enough. Eat more good fat. Most people do not eat enough. And the pictures on the right, the red and the yellow, all show you the same thing, but through the same people, but through an MRI. Before and after being on the earth. Is red and yellow is pain and inflammation, and green and blue is happy, soft, and relaxed. Everything that we talked about today, all the benefits you want, if you would just sleep more, you would actually get them. 5 hours of head pillow contact is what your body needs. Your glands, your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenals that we just talked about on those complicated slides. If you are laying down for 5 straight hours, your glands will heal. And even if you're wide awake, you will feel physically better. But if you sleep for 4, get up to pee, and then go back down for 4, you will not feel as good. And guess what? You never, ever, ever wake to pee. You wake because of what's going on in your organs, because of deficiencies, nutrient deficiencies. Your organs and glands are trying to heal in the middle of the night. And when they can't heal, because they don't have enough CoQ10 or selenium or manganese or something important, it stirs you to wake up. The moment you're awake, you have to pee, but you never, ever wake to pee. So while I'm still talking, you can take a screenshot of this slide. It's just some remedies for each of the 3 different stages of healing. And I could have made this list 10 pages long. There's so many things you can do to heal. The same thing that we did with tapping and swiping, you can do castor oil topically on your main assembly line organs, and then you get in the shower, and that's inexpensive. Tapping and swiping is free. Castor oil is less than $15, and you can use it on all parts of the assembly line. And every time you take a shower, you can get a treatment. And I have a whole section of free downloads on my website. You can read a lot of that stuff there. And I also have a do-it-yourself section on my website that I spent a lot of time putting together. So if you were to come here for a one-on-one session or on Zoom, I work with people everywhere around the world. And our beginning stages, what I would have you do to build a biofield and get your assembly line working, all of it is spelled out in the do-it-yourself section on my website, DIY. If you use the code BALANCED on my website, you will get 15% off just for this group. And we also have at the checkout, please go to the free download section and learn some stuff there. There's tons of information in the blogs. I really sign up for our health letter, which is my newsletter. If you want to hear more about some of the things we talk about, the more you hear this same information repeatedly, the more it will sink in. I always tell clients that it takes 3 full sessions with me to speak the same language, but it's like learning a new language. sadly, because this is our body and we're women and we've lived in these bodies our whole lives, I couldn't tell you every detail about a menstrual cycle without looking it up, because I can never remember a few of I understand it and I know it, but I don't remember which is the luteal phase and which is this other phase. And I'm a practitioner, so I know that most of you don't know that information and you trust us, but a lot of practitioners just don't know about scars. They don't know about the biofield. They don't know about the EMF damage that's doing to your body. And they're leading you down this path, telling you how complicated it is to heal, when really, I mean, I don't know, we're going to have time for Q&A in a moment, but you can feel better just from tapping and swiping and breathing and going outside on the earth and getting sunlight. It's really easy. There's also something called body talk in my free download section. Saying those words repeatedly improves your emotional status. And that is a big part of healing when you want to heal. Is the emotional body. I can get rid of a parasite or what I call an interference field, like the C-section. We could heal that C-section area, and then you're a basket case. And then you feel like all of your problems came back. And when we calm down your nervous system and your emotional body, suddenly you're like, oh, I actually feel so much better all over again. But healing is like a menstrual cycle. It's like this. And you want to catch yourself before you go too far down. So even when you feel great, you still have to do things, because there are going to be these like waves of healing. And the most important thing to do is to have regular programmed healing time in your schedule. I call it a personal healing moment. If you skip that for a couple of weeks and you just had a treatment, I guarantee you're going to feel worse at some point. So you have to plan your 5 minutes 3 times a week and your 1 hour once a week, or your half hour if you have little children once a week. You figure it out. But the more you have little snippets of me time where I can just breathe, tap and swipe, put my feet on the ground and just go, the better you're going to feel. And all of this that we talked about, that Denise talked about, that I talked about, it's all going to help your hair, with hair loss and hormone balance and sleep and the emotional piece and the digestion. And, I could talk for 3 more hours and not repeat myself of all the things you could do. So take little pieces, take home messages, and move forward from there, and have a healthy day.
So ladies, this is an example of an expert midlife healthcare practitioner, right? I mean, Julie is at like a whole nother level, but you see how she really understands what's happening to the body. She also was telling us that our body changes, at different points in time, we're feeling different ways. All the solutions are not just popping a pill in our mouths, right? Things like the tapping we do, the grounding. This is how you have a whole, when we talk about, when you hear that term holistic, this is what holistic living is really about. It's a combination of a number of things to keep the body operational and optimal. And that's sort of what we've been talking about today. So I know there's been a couple questions that have popped up. Vanessa, you want to lead us into that?
Certainly. One of the questions, going back, Julie, you were talking about cholesterol and the connections of that and stress, but they wanted to know, why would the back underarm lymph feel tender when poking? And might that be connected to this cholesterol medication that she's taking, and how that might be connected to cortisol?
Well, cholesterol medication, statins specifically, they block CoQ10 from being absorbed. They make you require more CoQ10, and your phone depletes you of CoQ10. So you are like completely negative in your body's ability to heal. CoQ is called the spark of the cell. It's like, I think of like a Bunsen burner back in the day. You used to have to like light that thing or it wouldn't go. So it's like the spark, like it's like the thing that gets the cell to work better is CoQ10. And without it, nothing's going to happen. And so her problem could be more in her lymph, because that is kind of that's a lymph area. But also we would have to say, was she, when she was nursing, was this breast clogged, or does she have issues with her wrists or her fingers on that side? Everything from the belly button up energetically on the subtle energy body drains out through the hands. So to see what's going on here, is there a trauma somewhere in here? Did she have a boob job? That is super problematic, even more so even than the C-section and episiotomy. Does she have metal fillings or implants? Or did she ever have a lot of injections into the gums? Because all of that stuff has to drain out through the lymph and all the way out the arm. So it's a lot of different reasons why that could be. And so it's kind of, again, like the fixer-upper house, like once you get the groundwork into place, the biofield, and you start to address the assembly line, by the time you get to working on your chief complaints, some of them are gone. And some of the scars already test strong. It's just that your body might have been trying to heal like something that happened here, or a trauma to the head when she was little doing gymnastics or falling off a bicycle. But it's so depleted that it piles up a whole problem here because the circulation wasn't good. And CoQ10 and the heart being super important to pump for circulation all around systemically, the problems are going to happen anywhere. And the reason I can line up 20 people, and I'll use the example of migraines, and I can find 20 different causes for it. One can be a trauma, one could be like a physical trauma, like a scar, and one could be a deficiency in CoQ10, another could be parasites, but all of the problems can be different, and your unique problems are because of your traumas and scars throughout your entire life. Plus, where you live. Do you live on a mountain? Some people do better at sea level, some people do better in the mountains. So your environment really dictates a lot of it as well. So it's really hard to answer that question with one specific answer, but that's the lymph. There is a lot of lymph there, and most people's lymph is clogged.
One other question, and Denise, this goes to you. For those that are in their 40s and think that they might be entering menopause, they wanted to know, you had said that can be true. It can start a lot earlier than what we might think. So what would be your next steps or suggestions?
If they feel that they're having menopausal symptoms early,
Correct.
I would first have them go see the doctor that they're seeing, right? Currently, having them run a blood test, a saliva test, maybe a Dutch test. They may or may not be familiar with that, to understand a baseline of what may be going on with the hormones. And then, really seeing what's next after the doctor does that. If they go see the doctor and the doctor is not running those specific types of tests, it's time to move on. If they're not trying to understand that you might have perhaps a hormonal imbalance as a first step. I mean, where Julie at is on a whole nother plane. I mean, if you came in to see her, there's just a whole different thing she's going to do to see really what may be triggering and causing that. But if you have a traditional, like you're at Kaiser, Cedars, any of those kinds of places, that if the first step they're not trying to do is first actually listen to what you're saying and not going, oh, you're only 40, you're fine, you're not menopause. If that's what they say to you, you really have to go. You really have to go. Because if you're 40 and you're having symptoms that's actually driving you to see a doctor, it means you may suffer you could suffer for 10 to 15 years. If you go to Wise Pause, definitely, Julie, I don't know if that person who's asking that question in particular doesn't live in the state, but if you go to wisepause.com, we list a lot of healthcare practitioners and some of their specialties as well.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Julie
Yes,
wants to
Julie,
chime in.
please add.
Yeah. So hormones are better assessed through saliva than blood, and most traditional doctors are just going to do blood. But it's a good starting place. And but I would ask them for saliva testing, and I would you have to like prompt your doctors, do the thyroid panel, do this panel, do that panel. They don't really want to do that. And they are great at handing you your lab work and saying you're fine. And the same people come see me, and there's like 8 things out of range. And I do have also, I spent probably like 50 to 80 hours organizing this, but you can download optimal blood value. It's like a personal lab report where you can see narrow ranges instead of like 0 to 100. It's like 20 to 30 is normal. And you can see what it means. It's like an 80-page document on my website. You can download that for a small fee. And I highly recommend you're in charge of your health. Don't let your doctors just like write you off and you leave. I had someone come in the other day. She's like, I don't know, they just like implanted something. I wasn't really paying attention. Like, it's hello, like, you're in charge of your health. Aside from that, like, people come and they're like, my doctor said this one said that. Well, what do you think? You're the doctor, you're the CEO. And so you make sure you get a copy of everything until you find the right practitioner that actually has answers for you. Because the answer is not you're overweight and you're just a woman in menopause. Those are not acceptable answers. Mm-hmm. And I am 51 and I've never had a hot flash. And I've helped 45-year-old women have babies. And women have had babies that were told they were infertile in just a few months. Like it's not as hard as they make it sound to get healthy and to feel better. So make sure you're on the right path.
Thank you for that encouragement. Well, we are at the 11 o'clock hour. I thank each of you for staying with us. I thank both of our speakers. Dean Williams, if you're still here and you would like to share a greeting with our whole group and usher us out, I know that we would all appreciate that.
Thank you so much. So I was praying for this opportunity. Denise and Julie, this has been just the best way to spend the day. Personally, I could sit with the two of you 24 hours, except for the at least 5 hours of head to pillow rest that I get. This has been fantastic. I have a number of pages of notes here, and I started listening to this presentation with a very scientific mindset, a very traditional mindset. And while I've ended this session with a scientific mindset, I have a more natural, more healthy mindset. This is life-giving. I am so ready to go forward and live a healthy life, a healthier life, without all of the traditional chains that have been put on my head. And I thank you for that. I thank you. I am determined to tap and swipe, to eat more antioxidants every day, the vitamin C, the blueberries, all of that. I am determined to be a healthier person. You have given me the skills and the resources to do so. And I hope and pray that the other ladies on the call today and those who will view this later will get the same feeling. I pray life-giving moments for both you, Denise, and you, Julie. God bless you. Thank you for coming. Ladies, let us all go forth and be whole, using the skills and the techniques that have been shared with us today.